I want to welcome to our podcast today an incredible individual who's making waves in the science space. Dr. Lachlan Rogers is a quantum physicist and an Avondale alumni graduate in 2005 who has been named UNESCO's Global Quantum Top 100 Individuals. So I'd like to welcome him to our podcast. You've just been named UNESCO's Top 100 influences in your field of science. Obviously, the question is, how does that make you feel? But I think maybe what does that mean to you?
Well, firstly, I mean, it's really exciting. And it's intentionally a fairly diverse range. It's a snapshot of people across the whole field. So it's exciting to be part of the list. I think it's really exciting for our region. This is the sort of story that I've been pitching a lot to anyone who will listen, around sort of my region of New South Wales, saying this is a really exciting global area of science development and technologies that are emerging, and it's not happening somewhere else.
It's here in Newcastle. It's local. Yeah. Well, there was over 400 people nominated around the world.
Yes, there's a range of people. They're smart, they're interesting, they're diverse, they come from a range of backgrounds. There's also obviously heaps of people that work in this field that aren't on the list that could have been nominated perhaps, absolutely, but weren't. When I associate with these people, when I enjoy hanging out with them at science conferences, there are lots of people that get into this, and everyone has their little area of niche, complete expertise. And then you've got the conversations that happen a little bit more broadly, and that's something that can be a little bit tricky to navigate. I can imagine. It's very easy to be talking to someone and feel like you know what they're saying, even as a bit of an expert in the field that spent years building that expertise, and suddenly find not following you.
They're the specialist in that field. Yeah. Well, you're the specialist, obviously, in quantum computing. Is that right? Quantum.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is. I don't build quantum computers, but I have spent my research career working to try and understand how some of the building blocks work.
Amazing.
And then at the moment there are a whole lot of efforts sort of pushing that out towards quantum computation. So what I think is a really good description is that quantum computing is the sort of context, ecosystem where I feel like my work makes sense.
So that was the question that I was hoping to ask. If I was a primary schooler, which I feel when it comes to quantum computing or understanding your world, are you able to explain to me more details about what you do, where your research is focused, and what contribution is it making?
Well, I'll have a go. I think one of the first starting points is the idea of building stuff up from a very, very small starting point. So everything in the world is made of atoms.
Yes.
Fundamentally. But when we build things, even really, really high precision things, we very rarely worry about atomic scale. Even the, atoms and electrons that are behaving in our, inside computer chips, we're still really interacting with them averaged out. Basically. We're not zooming in and looking at single atom level. Okay. And atoms are where this whole exciting world of quantum science really comes alive. You can't describe an atom any other way. So what has really been happening over the last probably 30 years, 20 to 30 years, is that a lot of ideas which have been in textbooks and on classroom whiteboards for decades, sort of theoretical ideas around quantum science and atoms and energies and behaviors of electrons, have actually been turning into achievable things in laboratories, and that then builds the platform to sort of turn them into technology. So a quantum computer can be thought of as what happens when you take your bits of information that are just ones and zeros, and you put a single bit of information onto a single atom.
Okay.
And so your building block of your computer is sort of shrunk down to a single atom size. That doesn't mean the computer would be single atom, but the bits you can control are one atom at a time. That sounds a little bit exotic.
I think I feel like we're still up at the university level. So I guess trying to really nut it down is that the atom is essentially where the information is stored.
That's right.
Is that correct? And then it's putting onto.
Yeah, well, this is where it gets a bit complicated. The information is stored on an atom.
Yes.
If you could successfully do that well, you'd have a really, really, really miniaturized hard drive.
Okay.
You'd be able to make miniature sort of computer storage. But that's not really the goal. The goal is to actually compute, to do something with that information, to process it. And that is where you need to be able to kind of manipulate atoms. You need to be able to control them in a way, poke them, prod them, measure them. And this is, I mean, crazy to think about because atoms are so small.
And
yeah,
complex.
I mean, it's something like the same size difference from me to the sun.
Okay, right.
If you go then from an atom to me, it's something similar. So atoms are really, really small. But they're also fascinating. I mean, I like to tease students and say anyone can talk to atoms. You should try it. There are atoms all around you. The hard bit...
Talk to them.
You can talk to them.
Yeah.
The hard bit is listening to their answer.
All right.
And that's the real sort of breakthrough that we've been, broadly across a whole range of fields. We've been getting to the point where we can really do this, really do it really reliably. In my work, the atoms talk back with light.
That's how, so I was doing some research in that as well, where you actually shoot lasers into diamonds. Is that correct?
That is exactly right.
And does the diamond then show you its imperfections or its impurities?
Yeah, so it does, but we've got to keep ourselves down at this really small scale. So if you walk into a jewelry store and you look at diamonds, they're very beautiful, and some of them have imperfections. There can be scratches on the surface, or there could even be some sort of visible... maybe even sort of microscopic but visible imperfection. That's not what I look at. I look at going down to counting the atoms in the crystal, and every so often there's the wrong sort of atom that gets in.
Right.
So this is quite a lot like raisin toast.
Okay.
It's still bread.
Yes.
But every now and again there's a piece of dried fruit that's not what you expected to be there. It's not, if you put too much raisins in, it stops being raisin toast and becomes, I guess, fruitcake or something. I'm not sure. Yeah. But the point is, when there's only a couple of raisins here and there, you would still walk to a bakery and buy it as a loaf of bread. So the diamonds I look at are still diamonds. Yeah. But every now and again, there's an atom that's... It's
not quite right.
A raisin,
that you can see.
That's the one that's interesting to me.
Right. Yeah. I guess if we can go back a little bit, if that's okay. I can imagine that when you were a lot younger... in a school here in Australia, you weren't sitting there going, I'm going to be a master scientist one day and win this, be nominated top 100 UNESCO's influential scientists. Was there any moments during your younger years or any influences that kind of drove you into the space that you're in now?
One of the influences for me was maths. I found, and not everyone does, but I found that I really enjoyed maths. And actually, it was sort of a love of maths that ended up pushing me into the areas of science that I specialised in. In my bachelor's degree, I did maths and physics as double majors, and only after bachelor's level was forced to pick just one.
Why?
And I think something really interesting happens here. A lot of people experience maths at school without it sort of resonating and being interesting. There were a group of us, luckily, at my school that were just a little bit keen on pushing a bit with maths.
Awesome.
Not everyone did it because they deeply loved it. Some people did it because they were good at it and could see it was just going to be good marks. Yeah. And some people, I guess, did it because there was a more intrinsic appeal. And I think that was where I was. But this teacher saw it and did a one-off thing where they ran this kind of after-school accelerated maths. So I ended up sitting some HSC maths a year early.
Right.
So I was sitting there in year 10 doing a whole lot of classes that didn't matter and doing year 11 HSC maths, which felt like it mattered heaps more. So suddenly I felt that excitement of, I'm doing something,
bigger than you.
Bigger.
Yeah.
that was really exciting. It was also quite fun to be in a class with a whole lot of the students that were a grade older than me.
And you're already keeping up with them mathematically.
Well, trying really hard. Yes, that felt really cool.
Yeah.
So that was one sort of example of where, fortunate in context, I guess. If I had been the only student in the class with any sort of interest, it would have maybe not quite gone the same way. There was a little bit of a group. Maybe that group that I'd sort of gone through school with was part of the reason why I'd sort of found it interesting. There'd been this kind of social dynamic. It was one of the things that I was a bit interested in, but it was also one of the things that I happened to do well in, and that feeds off each other.
Absolutely.
Because your interest builds in a thing that you feel
connected to.
That reward from, I can achieve, I can do something. So there was that. It's very difficult for me to retrospectively work out which was the dominant factor. They fed each other.
Was there influences, maybe say from family members? I feel like there's some, you do have a leg up a little bit here with your dad and your grandfather, was that correct?
That's right. Not in a direct straight line. It was my mum's father and then my father.
Okay.
Both had a background in science. In fact, both had a background in teaching science here at Avondale. So to some extent, I guess I just didn't have a choice.
they really drew the line for you and said, if you're going to excel, this is where you're going to go.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever said like that. But what it was, I mean, I remember really young, way before starting school, little tiny activities. Dad would be cutting an apple into slices, and there'd be these fun little games of, would you rather have 1/4 or 2/5? That sort of thing. Well, that's actually just playing with the idea of ratios and fractions and sizes, but
with an apple.
And sometimes it got quite challenging for Dad to cut the shapes that he was trying to describe. That's just one example on my mind where it is definitely true that I grew up feeling like some of this stuff could be fun. And I think it's very true that lots of people, honestly, I think get a very valid message from their experience of these topics sort of
from
through
that
school.
early exposure, I
guess. And a lot of people's takeaway message is this is not fun. I think they're wrong. I think it is fun. But it can be a little bit hard to see that, and I feel fortunate that the sort of childhood I had, I had influences that made it feel like it was possible to think of it as something fun.
Was it easy for you to say, right, I'm going to study science and major in physics? Why didn't you major in mathematics? Could you major in mathematics?
No, I did. So I double majored. I did maths and physics. I don't know exactly why physics really jumped out at me. I think it is on the scale of the sciences. Physics is sort of at the more mathematical end.
Yes.
So if I reflect back on it, I think that is
more to
the
that.
resonance. There is a quirk about this. So lots of people have their picture of what a scientist's mind is like. And a lot of people think
not like your shirt.
Not like my shirt. A lot of people think that scientists have minds that like to hold lots of facts. And there are some sciences that are like this. If you learn, and I'm trying to say this in a way that I'm not intending to sound dismissive, but physicists have a bad track record of making it sound as if they think all the other sciences aren't as good.
Right, right. See, they're not.
But I mean, I did choose physics for a reason. Yeah. But the point is, if you're trying to learn about the different structures in a leaf or the different components inside a biological cell, there's lots of long names. If you're trying to learn about all of the muscles and tendons and skeleton in the human body, heaps of long names. I'll let you in on a secret. Physicists hate memorizing lots and lots of facts.
Right.
This is why physicists love when you can get just one idea or one equation and realize it's general to a whole lot of stuff. So the one idea explains lots of things.
Different things.
And it's why out there, if you ever bump into scientists that are on a quest for the grand unified theory of everything, they really very likely to be a physicist.
Yes.
Because the whole mindset of physics is what's the smallest possible number of facts I need to know,
and how can I apply it
to answer the largest possible set of questions. Wow. Yeah.
And does that require then someone to be super or hyper focused then into that one area if they fall into it?
Yeah. I mean, I think what it does, I think it tends to attract, it is a particular kind of tackling of the problem. You look at a new situation or a new problem and your first instinct is, okay, what parts of this are like a problem I've already solved.
Right.
I tell my students it's basically just deeply habitual laziness. I don't want to solve a new problem.
No.
Can I make this problem into one I've already solved before? And then with
who doesn't want to do that? I've already solved this before. How can I apply it again? Yeah,
so
well, it's efficiency.
It is when you first meet things like energy and accelerations and things. You're imagining kicking balls around a sports field, and you're drawing diagrams of this sort of thing. And all of those exact same ideas end up being what you use when you describe how electrons live on atoms.
It's the same concept in a different format. Yeah.
So this is, I guess, that's another reason. It's a subtle reason why physics of all the sciences speaks a very mathematical language. Because what I have just described, taken to the extreme, that is how a mathematician's brain works.
Right. Very complex. Very.
Always trying to reduce the problem to one they've already solved and then build up in layers.
So if I can come back then to your time here at Avondale and having Dad as a teacher, I guess am I brave enough to ask which lecturer influenced you? Was it Dad? Was it another lecturer? Was it other peers? That kind of...
Yeah, well, it was both. So with my dad working at Avondale, I obviously was fairly local to the area. Yeah. So I still chose to come and live in the dorm.
Amazing.
And I did that partly, I thought I'd do it for a year.
Yes.
And I thought I'd do it just for the experience. Some of the other aspects, it's super fun, and the friendships and social dynamic and overlap, and just eating together. Eating is an enormously powerful social thing that humans do, and living in the dorm and eating at the cafeteria. So this was part of it. I ended up staying in dorm for all 3 years of my degree.
Incredible.
So that speaks, I think, a lot to just the influence of the social dynamic. The other thing that we had that was really special was there was a group of us doing science, not just physics, doing science together. Historically, I think it represents a little bit of a blip, a little bump up on some of the numbers, both in the years before and the years after. Yeah. So again, just one of those things that really aligned and worked well. We just had a 20-year homecoming.
Amazing.
And we actually dominated, the science students dominated our year homecoming because we thought we'd turn it into a little science reunion.
That's fantastic. It is incredible because science isn't a major, a very big topic here at university, but to have a group of students come through back in your time as well, being interested in science, now you're the leaders, you're the teachers, you're the influencers for the next generation. And I think that leads me to question, what has the role of being maybe a teacher or a mentor to the next generation of science enthusiasts? Yeah,
I've taken that in sort of professionally, taken that in two different directions that are quite different. So the first direction, of course, is after Avondale, I went to get where I am now. I did more science and ended up doing a PhD where you're working. It's quite different from a classroom or lecture theatre type situation. You're working one-on-one with a supervisor often. And in my work, which is experimental work, playing with toys in a laboratory, it's a lot of one-on-one time working. So my relationship with my PhD supervisor was a really valuable one.
Amazing.
And in my career since then, I've had the opportunity to supervise research students, master's students, honours students, and some PhD students. So that's a very tangible way of, in a very structured and official sense, mentoring, transferring knowledge, transferring ideas, but also learning heaps. Yeah. I was fascinated. My PhD supervisor, when I worked with him, was close to retirement, was in his late 60s, nearly 70, and the speed with which he could pick up new tech on the computer was astonishing. And fantastic. I think it might be part of the environment that he'd immersed himself in with a whole bunch of sort of uni students. And it somehow kind of worked to keep his brain agile. Yeah.
Do you find then now you're on the other side, that these science students that are coming through, are they just as young? Are they just as hungry for science? Is there a difference between maybe the young scientists that you were going through versus the next generation coming through?
They're very recognisable.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think has slightly changed is that broadly across Australia, we've gotten just a little bit better at visualizing the way science can turn into technology. I don't really claim loads of expertise on this. I've always really said my main passion is the discovery, the excitement of the search. And once an idea is once I've worked it out, there's a lot of hard work to turn that into sort of technology. It's really valuable, but it's not primarily my passion. Although I've had little journeys in there.
It's not your job particularly, is that right? Someone else's expertise coming in and
that's right. Into it. When I was a student, I think everyone would have just assumed in my field, if you want to do something like commercialize the technology, you've just got to move to Europe or the US.
Right.
And increasingly, that's not the case, and increasingly students realize that it's not the case. So you now have, this would be the biggest difference, you now have science students studying at university in Australia studying science, more likely to have a clearer vision of, I want to go off and do something epic in commercialization or industry, turning things into technology, and I can imagine myself doing that here in Australia.
Absolutely. Is it because we now have the infrastructure in Australia or the knowledge base as well to foster it here?
I think in some ways we always did, but the places like Silicon Valley just sort of had all of the visibility of that. Yeah. We've gotten better at connecting investors who have money they want to invest with people who are generating ideas that could turn into valuable technologies. I think we've gotten better at doing that.
Have you seen, with what you've grown to study and focus in your space, is there a bigger picture with it? Is there something that, I guess, your contribution to science and what you're learning and what you're trying to share with the world, is there this kind of, I don't know, is there a purpose driving you? Is there something behind this vision?
Well, yeah, probably a couple. And this actually overlaps. I think I forgot to say the second of the sort of mentoring sort of roles. I've gone out of my way to try and seek opportunities to connect with younger students, primary school students and secondary students who are not at the stage in their own studies where they have all of the fancy vocabulary. And little tiny things. There was a thing called Skype a Scientist, so I signed up for that, heard about it, signed up for it. It was someone organising this thing, just facilitating connections, so I did a video call through to a science classroom. That was a bit of a one-off. Other things, on one occasion, about 8 years ago, I needed to travel from Sydney to Perth for a conference, and was chatting to colleagues who were international. One was from India, one was from Spain, about how much of Australia they'd seen, and the answers were not very much. And I just quipped this silly remark, well, we could drive from Sydney to Perth, you'd see a lot of Australia.
Yes, a lot of it.
Kind of then had to backpedal because I thought this is just a crazy idea. In the end, we did it. To make it work, we applied for some sponsorship money and we visited regional schools.
Amazing.
About 8 regional schools across New South Wales and into South Australia. Again, sort of just pushing myself a little bit out of my normal comfort zone and trying to talk to people who keep asking the questions, saying, no, that doesn't make sense, explain it again. And it is, I think, a really important process. Because, I mean, connecting back to my comments on my own journey, feeling that university was a thing on my radar that was sensible for me to consider, I felt that really strongly. You know, at some of these remote schools in the Australian outback, and you see these kids and they're growing up, and their own picture of where their life could go is quite different because of their childhood. So just not all of them, many of them are going to have a fantastic time living all sorts of lives, but for some of them, it could have been the first time they thought the idea, well, what if I wanted to be a scientist one day? Well,
you're instilling that excitement for learning, like, you know, one of your teachers did at one point for you. Is that a space that interests you more and more? Is it, you know, if we were to look at, I guess, New South Wales education, for example, we're not going to try and change the world here, but obviously we're seeing more and more STEM coming into schools at the moment. Does that concept excite you? Is it, you know, just happening right on time? Is it, you know, what contribution would you like to
it's a really good question, because there's certainly things to celebrate, and I think an emphasis on STEM, an idea that this is one really valuable way to contribute to society and sort of make a difference. This is great. An idea that it can be a place. You know, different students at school go through. That's the time when you're growing up and you're changing and you're developing your thoughts, and it can be difficult sometimes to feel like you belong anywhere. Even just the message that for some students this is a place to belong That's really powerful. But then at the same time, I have all sorts of my own ideas about how we could do things better. And a lot of it does come back to this fundamental sort of word of excitement or passion. I don't think everyone needs to be excited about physics. But I think it would be awesome if everyone left school understanding why someone could be.
Yes.
And I'm not even sure we quite get there.
No.
And so the idea of being able to build up these ideas, some of the excitement is because they can be useful. Because you could imagine building a quantum computer. Because we did imagine building medical x-rays or rockets to go to the moon or something. Some of the excitement is the technology. But some of the excitement is just the ideas themselves, the beauty or the satisfaction. And I don't think we do a great job as society, and I don't think we do a good enough job as a sort of education system in society of communicating that, you know, some of these ideas are just beautiful. And we can appreciate them like that. A little quirk, a lot of students at school, when they're in maths class, are inclined to think the question, when am I going to use this?
Yes, of course.
But most students in music class never ask that question. As humans, we're really comfortable with the idea that we can do things for different reasons. And my own experience of sort of being drawn into maths, physics, science in general, and then later on more specializing into quantum, was dominated really by that same sense as someone who loves music gets when they hear the song, or someone who paints a painting gets. It's that idea of, this is really beautiful. This is exciting and interesting, even if it never was useful. It's still so exciting to learn.
I guess you don't normally think of things like that as every day, or science, maths, or when am I going to use fractions, and when I'm going to... But you're right, it's that idea of being able to enjoy learning these complex areas, and it's exciting for a lot of kids. So I guess you've mentioned quantum computing. Now, if we can talk about today's, advancing technologies, what is it currently doing and where is it going, I think?
Okay, great question. Quantum computing in particular is one of these technologies where right now we're living through the fuzzy zone of, has it been invented or has it not? And the reason that that's true is that we still don't have a company selling a commercial product that is very clearly a quantum computer to go and do a task that is different from anything else that we can do. But there are companies selling things that they're calling quantum computers. And then the building, if you break it down and say, okay, as an engineer, what would I need to build a quantum computer? We're getting increasingly good at doing those bits. And if you join a couple of them together, have you built a quantum computer? In slightly more technical language, this comes down to sort of counting out the bits. In our computer, we're accustomed to talking about mega or giga or tera, bits of information. If you have just one bit of information, is that a computer? We would say probably not. If you have 2 or 10 or 100, when does it become a computer? And that's the game that quantum computing is on right now. We can build systems that have 1 or 2 or 10 or maybe 100, and then it's a fair question to say, is this a quantum computer? One other difference is when computers were first invented, they had a pretty low bar of like being useful, of working, because all they had to do was add numbers up better than humans could. Our normal computers, our non-quantum classical computers, as we would say as a physicist, they're really, really good these days.
Absolutely.
So for a quantum computer to do something different that would be worth you spending a lot of money on it is just a harder task. All of this is the world we're living through right now. And if you're not thinking that, then you're reading the wrong news headlines.
You're not really aware of what's happening around you.
So computing is just one area. Interestingly, I think perhaps the most helpful way to think about a quantum computer is to think about the comparison between a laser and like a flashlight that you might use when you go camping. The laser is a much more technical light source. It's in lots of ways, it's a better light source, better for lots of technologies.
Yeah, right.
But you still don't choose to take your laser pointer with you when you go camping because it's only one color. It makes a little spot. It might burn a hole in your tent. Whereas the flashlight is giving nice broad light that's useful. So if you're building car headlights or flashlights camping or whatever, you don't need the laser. But what the laser did was made it possible for us to use light to do totally new things we'd never done with light before.
That's incredible.
And a quantum computer, I think this is probably, at the moment, from what I can see, the most helpful way to think about it. A quantum computer is unlikely to come along and just replace your laptop.
Yes, understood.
It will let us do totally new tasks, totally new things that have not been possible to deal with before with computers, as powerful as they are. Absolutely. And one simple little example of this is actually back sort of to the story of atoms. If you have atoms that join together to make molecules, which is how life works and how all of chemistry, and I mean, we're built on molecules, it's really, really, really difficult to reliably predict what shape the molecule will be. Even water, which is a pretty simple molecule, H2O.
Yes.
So that's two H's and one O, two hydrogens and an oxygen. It doesn't form just a straight line of those three atoms. It forms a slightly bent line. And that's why water supports life from a chemistry and biology perspective. But from a physics perspective, it's a fascinating question to say, why is it not straight? Why is it bent?
Yes.
And the answer is quantum science. The atoms on that molecule are doing what they do.
Yeah.
They're solving the quantum science equations.
They're reacting, I guess, to their input, or what?
They are. What they're trying to do is basically just relax down so that they've got the least energy they can get, because that's what they would like to do, and that gives them this bent shape because of the way electrons move, because of the quantum science of the atoms. But what's bizarre is, with water, we sort of can calculate this.
Yes.
With the sorts of molecules that matter for health, like proteins or vaccines or viruses, they're way too big. And at the moment, we cannot use computers to properly and reliably predict the shape of these molecules. We can have a rough guess.
Yeah.
There's whole fields of computational chemistry that are based around the idea of having a go, and we can work sensible kind of hunches out, but we really can't reliably work out the shape of these molecules. And a quantum computer would be able to, because the problem is a quantum problem at the level of the molecule. Yeah. Our issue is that our computers are not quantum computers, so they're having to solve it translated into non-quantum land, and they just aren't big enough. That's too hard. But a quantum computer gets to solve it natively in quantum language.
So what I'm hearing is that we're going to need very creative scientists coming through in the next generations to kind of think outside that traditional box of science and physics to really kind of explore and ask the questions outside.
Yes, very much so. I find myself, I think of myself as a physicist very comfortably, but I find myself increasingly not using the word physics too much in a general public context and defaulting more to general words like science, because a lot of the problems that need solving don't fall into the neat boundaries of, oh, this was biology or this was chemistry, this is physics, but rather a kind of joining this together. That's been a bit of something that's been happening for a few decades, and it's probably going to get more. But there's another part to it. If you go back, and I think some of these aren't historically accurate, but if you go back to the very earliest days of our electronic computers, there are these crazy sort of quotes from people. A leader of IBM saying that maybe there might be a global market for 6 computers. Right. And we laugh and we say, oh, how silly. But that's where we are with quantum computing technology right now. When they built the first digital computer, they weren't imagining Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Wikipedia and all of the things we do. I mean, even the stuff we do where the internet meshes in with our lives. Uber and
AI.
AI. They weren't imagining this. And we're at the point where we can start to imagine a quantum computer, but we really can't imagine what we could do with it. And that's where a whole new generation of really creative scientists, creative problem solvers, this is where it gets really imaginative. There is a quirk about humans, our ability to build new things is constrained by our imagination. Absolutely. We're limited by what we can imagine. And before the iPhone and the smartphone era of things on the cloud, every computer we had was either on a desk or maybe on our laps. Yeah. And people wanting to build quantum computers wanted them to look like that.
Yeah, right.
And they couldn't imagine it being useful if it wasn't portable. And now we're deep in the world where things live on the cloud.
That's right.
My photos live on the cloud and emails live on the cloud. Yeah. It's quite possible for us to now imagine, well, what about having a quantum computing service on the cloud that solves certain problems for us?
Absolutely.
But in 2006, we couldn't imagine that as a science community, even very clever people.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting through talks where people were saying, oh, well, that's an interesting science idea, but it'll never be useful for a quantum computer because it won't be portable. And now we're building building-sized quantum computing facilities to have a go at see if we can, because we sort of can imagine even one like that could be useful.
What it would look like.
Yeah.
If you were to consider speaking to the next generation coming through even high school into university, what would be a few things that you would, I don't know, share your thoughts or ideas or to help them, I guess, really harness their passion for science and for the creativity that's going to be needed to move into the next space of this exciting time?
I think I'd focus on a couple of key ideas. The idea of exploration and discovery. This, I think, resonates. A lot of humans do a very wide range of activities with those sorts of motivations. You can be an explorer, you can be an artist and paint things, and there's a kind of a quest there. Literature and movies and culture can be these similar sorts of quests of discovery. Some of it is self-discovery, some of it is trying to sort of put words to things, experiences that people have. Science is that discovery of how the world works, how the universe works. In my own journey, you don't do a whole lot of fresh discovery as a bachelor student in science.
Exactly.
And when I was starting my PhD, I was a couple of months in, and I was still trying to get my head around what we were working on, and I was not an expert trying to sort of pick it up. And at one point we were having a chat, my supervisor and I were having a chat over afternoon tea, which was very strictly observed at 3:30 every afternoon at the university where I worked. And the idea was about a measurement we could do to see something totally brand new. And we went down to the lab after that. So last thing in the afternoon, we went down to the lab. We cobbled together not even the right pieces of equipment. And we looked for this measurement and we could see it. The diamonds that I study normally glow red. We saw that they also glowed in the infrared.
Oh, wow.
As well as the red.
Yeah.
And we were the first people in the world ever to see that. And then it was my job for a couple of weeks to try and measure it more carefully. And I went on this journey where I then tried to set it up with the right equipment, and I couldn't see this infrared signal.
Right, so it was the wrong equipment that helped you see.
That's right. Then I started to, scientists are trying to troubleshoot this. The scientific, I was being trained in this way of thinking of, okay, what is explaining this? And one explanation was, it's not from the diamond, it's a weird bogus signal from one of these bits of equipment that wasn't meant to be there. So I rebuilt it with the cobbled together equipment, and I did see the signal. And it was actually a few weeks of trying to nail down what was going on. And it really was coming from diamond. Eventually we worked out we could measure that. Incredible. And I think that was really the first time in my sort of science journey where I really could say, I have measured something, I have discovered something for the first time no one else has ever seen. I've skipped lots of the details because it's not a massive thing. It's a very specific and kind of technical thing.
Yeah.
But the feeling was just the same as if I'd discovered a new continent. I mean, for me, the feeling was exhilarating.
Yeah.
And that would be a massive message, because unfortunately, when you're at school, it's really hard to discover new science, because people have been doing these sciences for hundreds of years, and the simple questions, the obvious questions, have mostly been answered.
Sure.
So you now learn those in textbooks. Someone else answered and discovered that, and you have to learn it. And unfortunately, all the way through school, that kind of is the way science is, and it's hard to imagine it being very different. Sadly, most of the way through a bachelor's degree, it's still pretty much the same, especially in my field, in physics. there's a lot to catch up on, so you've got to
Yeah.
catch up on it all. But keep your eye out for the joy of discovery. And this is, teachers are really good, but an excellent way for teachers to capture this kind of student is to present things, even things that are well known in the textbook, as a story with a bit of discovery and a bit of excitement.
It's not just theory, it's a whole lot of what can your mind conjure and what can you vision for science, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute privilege to talk to you. I've obviously learnt a lot, but thank you so much for sharing all your insights and your story and your journey on becoming who you are today. So thank you.
You're
for
very
joining
welcome.
us.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.